descendants of Orthodox spirituality.
Lord, have mercy. Lord, have mercy.
A wondrous journey into Orthodoxy.
Lord, have mercy.
Prepared and presented by Angeliki Antonakou, Lekea.
Hello, dear listeners. We are continuing to read from the book With Pain and Love for Contemporary Man, the first volume in the series Spiritual Counsels by Saint Paisios. Injustice affects one's descendants. Geronda, when I left to join the monastery, I was treated unfairly by my family. Should I ask for what legally belongs to me? No, that's not the right thing to do. I fear that something bad may happen to them as a result of this. Now, this is what I call pure philotimo. If I were you, I would tell them, I want nothing for myself, but I would like you to give my share, what is rightfully mine, to the poor with your own hands, starting with our poor relatives. I am asking this because I don't want the wrath of God to fall on your children. Likewise, sometimes a father may give away his fortune for the good of his soul, by creating a charitable institution, for example, and leave nothing to his own child. The grandparents in a family may have done something wrong and still have a good life, without consequences. But then their children or grandchildren may suffer. They might get sick and be forced to spend on doctors the money that was made unjustly. In this way, they will pay their grandparents' debts. A family I once knew went through many difficulties. First, the head of the family got very sick, suffered greatly, and after being bedridden for a few years, passed away. Then his wife died, and later his children, one after the other. His fifth and last child passed away recently. Even though they had been a very rich family, they lost everything and ended up being poor because they had to sell their property for almost nothing in order to pay the doctor's bills and all the other expenses. I used to wonder why all these horrible things, sickness and accidents, were happening to them. I happened to know some members of this family, and it did not seem to me that it was the good kind of trial, the kind that God sends to those He favors. Rather, it was obvious that God's spiritual laws were being put into effect. I wanted to be certain, and so I tried to find out more about the family from reliable sources, some old folks who lived in the same town. I found out that the man had inherited a certain fortune from his father, which he increased by doing all sorts of wrong things. So if a widow, say, were to ask him for a loan to pay for her daughter's wedding, and promised to return the money once she had harvested the crops, he would ask instead for a piece of the land she owned. And as she was in great need, she would sell him the land for the price he set. Someone else would ask him for a loan to pay the bank and promise to repay him after the cotton harvest. He would ask for the poor fellow's land and would get it for almost nothing, as the farmer was afraid that the bank would come after him. When someone else asked him for a small loan to pay the doctors, he would go after his cow and buy it for pennies. This is how he made his fortune. The pain he caused to all those poor people was returned, not only to him and his wife, but also to his children. So the spiritual laws came into effect, causing them to suffer the very same things that the father's actions had caused. In order to pay all their medical expenses and everything else, they had to sell their land for almost nothing. And after becoming poor, they left this life for good, one after the other. God, of course, with His love and sense of justice, will judge them accordingly. Those who had been harmed by the man, all the poor folk who had been forced to sell their belongings to pay off the bank, and doctors and so forth, all those people will be rewarded for the injustices they had to go through. And of course, the unjust will also pay their dues. Those who wrong us are our benefactors. Yeroda, how should we treat someone who treats us unfairly? How should we treat him? We must treat him like a great benefactor who makes deposits on our behalf in God's savings bank. He is making us wealthy for life eternal. This is not a matter of minor importance. Are we not supposed to love our benefactors? Shouldn't we express our gratitude to them? In the same way, we must love and feel grateful to the person who has treated us unjustly, because he benefits us forever. The unjust will receive eternal injustice, whereas those who accept injustice with joy will be eternally justified. A pious family man had suffered many injustices during his employment. Nevertheless, he was full of kindness and endured it all without complaint. He came to the Kalivi once, told me all about it, and then asked me, "What do you advise me to do?" "What you should do," I said, "is wait for divine justice and divine returns and be patient. Nothing is lost. In this way you are depositing money in God's savings bank. You will surely receive interest in the next life for all the trials you are going through now. But you should know that the good Lord rewards even in this life those who have been wronged. And if this does not happen to the wronged person, then He will surely reward their children. God knows all. He looks after His creatures. Where there is patience, things always fall into place. God provides. We need patience, not logic. God is watching. He is observing us, and we must surrender unconditionally to Him. You see, the righteous Joseph did not say a thing when his brothers sold him into slavery. He could have said, "I am their brother." But he said nothing until God spoke and made him second to the king. Genesis 37:20. But when one does not have patience, he will suffer. He wants things to come his way, as it suits him, as it is comfortable for him. But nothing turns out the way he wants, and he cannot find comfort. When someone is wronged in this life, either by men or by demons, God does not worry, because the soul benefits as a result. Many times, however, we claim that we are wronged, when in fact we are the ones who have wronged others. We must distinguish between the two and not deceive ourselves. We must ask God's help to see and admit when we have done wrong. Render therefore to all their due. Yeroda, when we purchase something for the monastery, some people don't want to issue us a receipt. What must we do? They should always issue you an invoice, and you should also have fewer requirements. You should limit your needs and repair only what is absolutely necessary. This is what I would do if I were in your place. God will provide for what you need. When we monastics ask people not to issue invoices, we are actually causing others to sin. They think to themselves, "Since the monasteries are doing it, when we, who are supposed to obey the commandments of God, act this way, what will people think? Won't they be scandalized?" The Holy Scripture reads, "Render therefore to all their due." Romans 13 verse 7. Even when I send a letter with a person and not through the post office, I still put a stamp on it. Lay people may justify their actions any way they want, but if monasteries start acting this way, honesty will soon disappear and the gospel will be put aside. We monastics will be providing a negative sermon, a negative example, when we do not give freely of our own material goods. If anyone would sue and take thy coat, let them have thy cloak as well. Matthew 5 verse 40. That allows lay people to find excuses for their faults, since they are looking for a way to comfort their conscience. We must be careful because we will have no way to justify our actions on the day of judgment. Our goal should be primarily to defend spiritual principles rather than material things. When for some reason they do not give you an invoice, you must consider this a spiritual loss. Yeroda, it happens sometimes that a person will give a small amount as a donation to the monastery and ask us to give him a receipt for a bigger amount in order to present it as a tax-deductible expense. What must we do in this case? You must tell them, we don't issue receipts for a bigger amount. If you don't agree, we will return your money, and you may find someone else who will accommodate you. Be careful not to catch this disease. Yeroda, a handyman asked us to officially fire him so that he could collect unemployment benefits while still working for us. Oh no, that is not right. All it takes is a bit of conscience to see how wrong this is. It is not proper for a monastery to get involved in such matters. It is better to pay the handyman double what he charges, even if you are in financial difficulty, in order to discourage him from such behavior. It is that serious. Blessed deeds bring more blessings, while injustice brings disaster. You should be very careful with these matters. You should also not haggle with workmen to pay them less. This cries out to God. This is why we have fires and other catastrophes in monasteries. A civil servant takes an oath to perform his job in an honest way. For us monastics, this oath is twice as demanding. The promise we make is spiritual, and if we break it, it is a double sin for us. So that there is a discernible difference, we monastics must maintain a balance between what is secular and what is spiritual. God does not give His grace to an erroneous condition. It would be like helping the devil. Be careful to put sincerity and honesty first. Otherwise, you will end up in the same condition as the world, like a drunk who staggers and cannot walk straight. Can anyone in that condition stand on his own 2 feet? God's wrath will surely come. We shall be put to the fire. We shall be put to the test. In the first phase, gold will be separated from brass. In the second, the number of carats in the gold of each of us will become clear. The world lives in falsehood. People now are raised to be liars. They have made up a new kind of conscience. But I will not become a liar and turn into something I am not, simply because society demands it. I would rather tell the truth and suffer. One must be careful not to enter this secular orbit. Take our financial system today. It is of little help. People are forced to declare a smaller income. Once I reprimanded some tax officials who happened to be men of faith. What is the matter with you? I asked them. You must make sure to keep some of the yeast intact with honest behavior. I know of too many wrongdoings in your department. Someone comes to the revenue service and says, I have an income of 1 million drachmas. But your official puts down that the man has an income of 3 million drachmas. He assumes that he is revealing only a third of his income, as is common practice, and that this hike will make up the difference. But if he is dealing with an honest person, tripling his income in this manner will backfire. It will lead him to cheat on his taxes the next year. In other words, instead of helping change the situation for the better, you are making things worse. But we don't know when they are telling us the truth, one of the men said. Start living a spiritual life, I replied, and you will know. You will then be able to tell the difference. God will inform you, and you will know. How deceptive the world has become. The malice of people today has exceeded all bounds. They try to deceive one another and consider it an achievement when they succeed. How deceptive the world has become. Everything is made deceptively. And consider that today people are earning so much more money than their parents or grandparents who were poor and barely got by. Yet the quality of most things is so cheap. One day, someone brought me a few tomato plants. Each plant was inside a very small bag containing coarse soil and some coarse sand to hold the moisture. They didn't even bother to pour in some water or to put in enough manure. They had only sprinkled some on the top like salt and pepper. When I took them out of the bag, I realized that their roots were dead. I had to put a layer of soil on top so that the plants could grow new roots. They are so clever in tricking people. Someone had brought me a big box with pastries. I will open it, I thought, when I have a lot of company. If I open it now, the ants will get in. So one day I had a large gathering, and I figured that the box should be enough to treat them all, and that I would even have some left over. As soon as I opened it, I saw that it was full of paper, and the actual container with the sweets was so tiny. The rest of the box was empty. Another time, they brought me a fancy box with pastries, all wrapped in ribbons. I will keep it, I thought, for the students of the Athonite Academy. Well, inside were lucumia, Greek jelly-like sweets, stale and hard as a rock. I never treat people with this kind of sweet. I give them soft and fresh treats. Yeroda, don't they see that this is a type of injustice? No, they consider it to be an accomplishment. Sin has become fashionable nowadays, and injustice is considered to be a sign of cleverness. Unfortunately, the secular spirit trains the mind in cunning, and people consider it a clever feat to wrong their fellow human beings. There's even an expression, "He's as smart as a devil. He gets things done." Inside, of course, the man suffers from the pangs of his conscience, his little hell. The just person has God on his side. This world is not for everybody. Those who want to lead spiritual and honest lives don't fit in it. Yeroda, why don't they fit in it? When someone is sensitive and finds himself in a harsh environment where people make his life hell, how can he survive? He will either start cursing or leave. But leaving is difficult because one needs to make a living. His boss tells him, "I trust you because you don't steal. However, you have to mix the rotten with the fresh. Take out these fresh clover bales and put in some of the spoiled ones." He even makes him manager in order to keep him. Yet the poor man has to do as he is told to stay employed. And of course, he cannot sleep at night and starts taking sleeping pills. Do you know how hard life is for honest people? They run into all kinds of difficulties and have to take all kinds of abuse from their employers. Life becomes hell for them. But what are they supposed to do? Quit? They have a family to feed. Should they stay? They'll run into more trouble. Should they obey their conscience or their boss? They are between a hard and a rock place. They can't stand it, but they remain patient and try to manage as best they can. In another case, they have one employee do all the work while his colleague only shows up to collect his paycheck. I know of someone who was department head somewhere. When the new administration came to power, they removed him from the post and replaced him with a party member who had not even graduated from high school. They made this new fellow the department head. But since he knew nothing about the work, they could not really transfer the previous manager to some other position. So what did they do? They just added a second desk in the office. The old boss did the work, and the new one was just sitting at his desk smoking, chatting, and drinking coffee. Completely shameless. And in addition to this, he was witless. He would say whatever came to his mind, and it was the other employee who had to take responsibility for it. In the end, the poor man had had enough. Maybe I should go somewhere else. There's not enough space for 2 desks. It is best that you stay here, he said one day to the new department head. And he got up and left because the new man was making his life hell. We are not talking about 1 or 2 days. It is unbearable to have to deal with such a person every day. Honest people are pushed around and end up in lesser positions, and sometimes they don't even let them be there. Others abuse them and step all over them. Don't we have the saying, they will walk all over corpses, they stop at nothing? But the more people knock the just and honest person down, the more the good God lifts him up like a cork. But it takes a lot of patience. Patience clarifies many things. Anyone who wants to live a virtuous life and be honest in his work, whether he is a laborer, merchant, or whatever else, must be determined to take in stride from the time he begins his work, that he may reach a point where he will be unable to pay his rent. For example, if he has a store, before God's blessings come upon him. He should not set out to obtain God's blessing with a goal like, if I get to the point of not being able to pay rent, then I will be granted customers. This is not the right way to think. God will not bless him if that is his intention. He must decide to live as God wills, no matter what the price. He must ask for God's help so that no matter what happens, he will not cheat or overprice things. Then God will not abandon him. His competitor may profit by hiking prices. What the honest man is selling for 50 drachmas, the dishonest man will sell for 500. At first, he will make a lot of money and become rich, but then his customers will find out that he is dishonest and his business will fail. He will not even have the money to pay rent. The honest man, on the other hand, will have so many customers that he will need to hire more workers. But God will test him first. A good man is tested at the hands of evil men. He is put through the fleece carder. A carder is a wire toothbrush or a machine fitted with rows of wire teeth used to disentangle fibers, such as wool, prior to spinning. When a person follows the devil's path and comes up with tricks and all kinds of deceptive schemes, his work is not blessed by God. Any work done with deception does not lead to prosperity. Such people appear to do well at first, but in the end they fail. It's important that we start with God's blessing in everything we do. A just man has God on his side, especially if he has a little boldness with God. Miracles happen. When someone lives according to the gospel, he is entitled to divine help. He walks with Christ. How else can we put it? He has earned God's help. This is the foundation on which everything rests. With that in place, there is nothing to fear. It is important that Christ, the Panagia, and the saints find comfort in everything we do. We will then have blessing, and the Holy Spirit will rest upon us. Honesty is more precious than the incomparable holy and precious cross. If someone is dishonest, even if he has a piece of the Lord's precious cross on him, it's as if he has nothing. But if he is honest, he has God's help no matter what, even without a piece of the precious cross. Of course, if he has both, well then, he's got everything. The just person is rewarded in this life. I have met souls who were treated unjustly, but suffered through it patiently and always with good thoughts. These people were showered with God's grace while in this life. Many years ago, a pious man, a simple and good-natured Christian, came to see me. He asked me to pray to Christ to enlighten his children when they grow up, to help them endure without ill feelings a great injustice. The perpetrators were his relatives. He told me what had happened. As far as I could see, he was a real man of God. The man was the oldest of 5 children. His father died young, and being the oldest brother, this man took his father's place. He became a good parent to his siblings. He worked hard, increased the family fortune, bought more property, land, and so on, and helped his 2 sisters get married. When his younger brothers got married, they took all the good fields, the olive groves, and so on. They left him with a few useless, barren, and sandy pieces of land. Finally, he got married and had 3 children. By that time, he was older. He was concerned that his children, as they grew older, might become bitter about the injustice perpetrated against them. He used to say to me, "It's not myself that I am concerned about, for I read the Psalter. I do one reading in the afternoon and 2 before dawn. I almost know it by heart." You don't read anywhere in the Psalms that the unjust prosper. The just have God. He looks after them. You see, Father, I am not sad for the land I lost, but for my brothers who are losing their souls. After this he left. He came to see me again some 10 years later. He was very happy. "Remember me, Father?" he asked. "Remember me? Of course," I replied, and asked how he was doing. "I am wealthy now," he said. "And how did you get rich, my good brother?" I asked him. "Well, all that useless sandy land of mine appreciated greatly because of its location on the shore. This time I have come to ask your advice on how I should spend my money." "You should make sure your children have a home to live in and put aside enough money for their education," I replied. "I have enough for that," he said, "and more." "Well then, give some to your poor relatives and to other poor people that you know." "I have done so, Father," he said, "but there's still a lot left." "Then you should give some to repair the church in your village and the chapels in the countryside." "I have done that too," he said, "and I still have plenty." Then I told him, "I pray that Christ guides you to do good for those who really need it." When I asked him about his brothers, he started weeping. "I don't know, Father. I have lost track of them. They sold their land in the village, the olive groves, and the fields, and I have no idea where they are now. They went to Germany first, then to Australia, and that's the last I heard of them." I was sorry I had asked about his brothers. I hadn't realized how sad he would get. I tried to console him, and when he left, he was at peace. I told him that we should both pray that he hears from them soon with good news. Later I remembered the psalm, "I have seen a wicked man overbearing and towering like a cedar of Lebanon. Again I passed by, and lo, he was no more. Though I sought him, he could not be found." Psalm 37, verses 35 to 36. This is exactly what happened to the man's poor brothers. There's nothing worse than injustice. Make sure that everything you undertake has God's blessing. Dear listeners, our time is up. We will continue once again where we left off in our next show. Until then, be well.
Christ God the Savior that gave his birth, I beg thee, O Virgin, from afflictions deliver me. For now unto thee I flee for refuge, bringing to thee both my soul and my reasoning. Lord, have mercy, Lord, have mercy.
Readings of Orthodox Spirituality.
Lord, have mercy, Lord, have mercy.
A wondrous journey into Orthodoxy.
Lord, have mercy.
Prepared and presented by Angeliki Antonakou, Lekea.